Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm attorney Gloria Allred, and with me is Ann Bird. I'll be making a statement for myself and Amber Frey, and then Ann Bird will be making a statement. Then we will be happy to take a few questions. You will hit Q&A after we conclude our statements, and then you will be able to have your statements or your questions answered. Thank you. Yesterday, Scott Peterson, who was found by a jury to be guilty of the first-degree murder of his pregnant wife, Laci, and the second-degree murder of his unborn son, Connor, was resentenced by the San Mateo, California Superior Court judge to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Scott Peterson had formerly been sentenced to death, but the California Supreme Court decided to overturn that sentence and send it back to the lower court for a new trial on the death penalty issue. The prosecutor in this case, after consulting with Laci's family, decided not to retry the death penalty phase. As a result, Scott Peterson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Scott Peterson lived for a period of time with his sister, Ann Bird, while he was investigated by law enforcement after his pregnant wife, Laci, disappeared. Ann Bird later wrote a best-selling book, which became #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, about him, called, quote, Blood Brother, 33 Reasons Why My Brother, Scott Peterson, is Guilty, end quote. I also represented Ann Bird during the trial. Ann was expected to be called by the prosecution as a rebuttal witness if the prosecution decided to rebut the defense. She did not testify, however, because the DA decided not to present a rebuttal to the defense. Ann will read her reaction to the new sentence imposed on her brother yesterday. She watched the hearing as it was live streamed. I also represented Amber Frey during the criminal trial against Scott Peterson, and I still represent her. Amber met Scott Peterson and had a brief relationship with him. Scott told her that he was not married and that he had lost his wife, even before Laci went missing. Amber contacted the police and law enforcement, asked her to secretly tape her conversations with Scott. She agreed to tape him, and as a result, she became the key prosecution witness at the trial. She recorded him at great risk to herself because if he had learned that she was recording him, she and her young child might have been at great risk of harm from Scott Peterson. In fact, when Scott Peterson was ultimately arrested, law enforcement found in his car a map to Amber's workplace and various items, including a knife and rope that could have been used to harm her. Amber is a true hero, and she took many risks for justice in this case. As a result of her courage and the recordings that she made, which were admitted into evidence, Scott Peterson was found guilty. Amber asked me to read her reaction today to the resentencing of Scott Peterson yesterday. She is not doing any interviews at this time. Part of the reason is that in February 2022, the San Mateo Court will hold a hearing to determine if there was juror misconduct in the criminal case. And if so, if there should be a new trial on the guilt phase of the People versus Scott Peterson trial. If there is a new trial, Amber will testify for the prosecution again. Amber is very brave to be willing to undergo testifying and cross-examination after so many years. She's willing to do it if necessary because, as Amber has said, quote, the truth is the truth, end quote. And she feels it is her duty to assist in the cause of justice if the prosecution asks her to testify. I am honored to represent both Amber and Ann Bird. Our hearts go out to the family of Laci Peterson and to Laci's mother, sister, and brother who read their victim impact statements at the court resentencing yesterday. Their anger, pain, and grief at Scott's betrayal and murder of Laci and Connor were still evident and could be felt by everyone watching and listening to them. They honored Laci as they spoke their truth to Scott and helped him and the world to understand how their loss of Laci and Connor still impacts them and their families. I hope that their words and what Scott Peterson did to Laci and Connor will haunt him every day for the rest of his life. And now I will read Amber Frey's statement. The court decided yesterday to sentence Scott Peterson to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Laci's family, according to reports, requested that the prosecutor decline holding another trial to retry the death penalty phase. It has been reported that the family felt that it would be too stressful. I understand and support the family's decision. They are the living victims of Scott Peterson, and their feelings and their decision should be respected. They have been very courageous throughout the many years since this tragedy. I wish them the best and hope that they find peace in the future. And now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Ann Bird. And Ann, would you please tell us what your reaction was to the resentencing hearing yesterday in the case of People versus Scott Peterson?
Of course. Thank you, Gloria. Life is precious, and Laci's life was taken away, and her unborn son was never even given the chance to experience the world. I wish I could have seen what kind of mother Laci would have been. I believe that Scott is guilty of Laci and Connor's murders, and that our justice system accurately convicted him. The mountain of evidence, Scott's behaviors, his bizarre lies, point to Scott as the perpetrator of these heinous murders. The behavior that I witnessed from Scott after Laci disappeared was not that of a grieving husband or a father-to-be. It was that of a roving bachelor. A man not looking for caring about his missing pregnant wife, but a man who was more interested in our attractive babysitter and portraying himself as a single man. Seeing Scott in the courtroom yesterday mirrored what I had seen 17 years ago. Scott still appears to be vacant and emotionless, even with the mask on, and it was hard to see the rest of his face. I still saw that. Yesterday, after hearing Laci's siblings and her mother speak, I realized that although 17 years have passed, the feelings of complete sadness, loss, and anguish still exist. I have lived through debilitating pain that they spoke of, and I also want to know why Scott is unable to tell the truth. I wish he would. While I do not agree with the death penalty, justice has been served, and just punishment is in place and should stand. Scott should remain in prison for the rest of his life, and there is no excuse for murder. I stand by my comments, both past and present. I hope that someday all who are attached to this heartbreaking and horrific history can find some peace.
Thank you, Ann. If you are a reporter, you may hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. And if you have a question, feel free to put it up and we will be happy to answer it. I don't see any questions right now, but if there are any, we will be happy to answer them. While we're waiting, I'd like to ask you, Anne, if you have anything to say to Scott at this point, and I know you're not in contact with him, what would be your message to him?
I wish he would take just a fraction of pain away and just be honest and, say, you did it, and at least felt a tiny piece of the puzzle in. I think that would alleviate a little bit of pain for all those involved.
All right, thank you, Anne. All right, we have some questions. Anne, feel free to answer whatever you would like, and if you don't feel comfortable or don't wish to answer the question for any reason, feel free not to. Okay. The first question is from Laura Marinai. Anne, you were living in Berkeley at the time Scott stayed with you.
Correct.
Do you have any more specific examples of his behavior during that time that alarmed you?
He was over at our house, and at the time I had no clue. I thought he was looking for his missing wife, but he went to the store and got cocktail mix to make something called Sextinis, and he was serving them to our babysitter, and things just started to trigger after that, and just the lack of interest in looking for Laci was very apparent. And it took me a while to kind of put these little pieces together, because they say people grieve differently, or, don't know what to do in strange situations. So I just kind of watched, things layer up. And then I started thinking something's really not right here.
Now, you said he served a cocktail to your babysitter. Did you say the cocktail was named Sextini?
Correct.
And that's what he told you?
Yes.
Okay. And in addition to that, was there anything else that was inappropriate with the babysitter?
No, I think he was heavily flirting with her. She had a boyfriend, and I think was a little alarmed, and I was alarmed altogether because we had two small kids at the time, and so I just, was paying more attention to them, and I didn't really know what was all happening until it was unfolding in front of me.
Also, Claudia has a question, and she would like to know if you and Scott have the same parents or exactly how you are related.
We share the same mother, so biological mother. So Jackie Peterson had 4 children: Dawn, myself, John, and Scott. Scott is the child that she had with Lee, or Pete. He goes by both names. I had a different father, and I was adopted before birth. I went straight from being born from Jackie to my parents. So I knew I was adopted, but didn't find them until I was in my 30s.
But then you were reunited with your biological mother.
Correct.
Also with Scott at some point.
Correct. And I thought Scott and Laci were a really neat couple, and I just absolutely adored Laci. She was something else.
So you met and spent time with both the Scott and Laci.
Yeah, we went on a few vacations together, and we're trying to get to know each other. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, Claudia has asked, what is Amber doing now? How's her daughter doing? And I'll take that question. That Amber would like to continue to have privacy at this time, and so she prefers no comment about how she and actually her children are doing. but it's not easy, I'll just say, to have to remember so much of what happened at this time. So in addition, NBC Radio, iHeartMedia, John Libertini would like to know, Anne, will you testify if a new trial is granted?
Yes,
And if you're asked to testify?
yes, I will testify if need be.
Thank you. Another question from Laura, Mari and I. The Peterson family was present at the hearing yesterday. Janie Peterson, Scott's sister-in-law, has pretty much devoted her life to proving Scott's innocence. How does that make you feel?
Janie's very sweet. And I think she's had a really hard time even thinking that Scott is guilty. And that's her prerogative. She's, gone in a different direction. I've seen some of her facts, and I don't agree with some of them, but that's her thing.
Okay, thank you. Laura's also asking, what was the moment when you realized that Scott killed Laci?
So when Laci's body was found in the Berkeley Marina, or near the Berkeley Marina in the San Francisco Bay, I heard it on the news. It was a local news station that they found a body, and Scott was on his way to our house. And at that point, we were all starting to get nervous around him. Things were just not adding up. But he was pretty close by and turned around and left. And that was extremely telling. I believe the police said that they had pinged his cell phone near our house, going there and then away. And that was very telling.
Ultimately, he ended up in San Quentin from that house, and you no longer live there. Were you able to see San Quentin from your house?
There was I tried to avoid the walks that I took that went right near San Quentin, but my children went to Marin Catholic High School, which was right down the street from San Quentin. It's on the same road. And every once in a while I'd catch glimpses, if we were heading over to the East Bay or something, but it was daunting. You see it, it's a huge kind of a palace, not a palace, but a huge big building. And it's weird to drive by and think that you actually know somebody that's in there.
Exactly. And that he's your brother.
Yeah.
He's now, I think still now been transferred to San Mateo because of the hearing coming up in February. But anyway, we'll see if he's there.
Right.
We're back in San Quentin, but in any case, you're no longer in California. So Inside Edition, Britt, she says that you mentioned Scott had a vacant look in court. Could you tell us more about seeing him during the court hearing yesterday?
I think it was mostly when Sharon Rocha was speaking. And I saw him looking at her, and I believe she said, "Don't bat your eyes at me." And it was almost like he looked confused. I could only see from the eyes up, but it seemed like a look of confusion or I'm not doing that kind of thing. I don't know. But it just if it were somebody else, you'd think they would be weeping and unable to kind of stay in control. You'd feel so awful, but that didn't seem to be there.
Yeah, I think I'll only take one more question, but I would like to say also that you heard Sharon say very passionately to Scott. Two things will always be true, Scott. One is that Laci is dead. And the second is that you murdered her and Connor. How did you feel when she said that?
I think that was extremely powerful. And I hope he hears and gets that. I really wish he would say something. I wished he had said something yesterday. But my heart just breaks, for myself too, and the Rocha family. We're all, having to live without Laci and without Connor. She was great.
Okay. Well, we're sorry for your loss too. We have a question from NBC. What do you have to say to the court? And I think the answer to that is definitely fleshed out in her book, Blood Brother. 33 Reasons Why My Brother Scott Peterson is Guilty. And also there may also be facts in there or that may be used if she testifies in a new trial. And there may be facts that she's not included in her book that the prosecution may wish to ask her about if, as and when she's called as a witness, and if a new trial is granted. So I want to thank you, Anne, for being so brave to share all this today. It's clear that you are
Thank you.
still filled with sadness in yourself at the loss of Laci and Connor and having to relive this again, the memories. And thank you very much for being willing to speak your truth.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks very
Have
much.
a great day. And thanks everybody for joining us. If you would like a copy of the statements, please inquire. We will make them available. And probably within the next hour also, you'll be able to see a recording of this. It will also be on YouTube at some point, and also has been streaming live on my Facebook page. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.